Cherry is now available on Apple TV Plus and is directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. This movie is their first major directorial venture since Avengers Endgame. This movie stars Tom Holland, who plays Cherry, actually. He's not actually called that in the movie. There's really no name given for him, but he's credited that in the credits. And this film is a story based on the novel by Nico Walker of the same name, which essentially chronicles the story of how he was a medic in the Iraq War. And when he got back, he had intense amounts of PTSD. He wasn't sleeping well. He got addicted to heroin, and basically that was what's keeping him at bay. Eventually, they needed more money to get more heroin, and so eventually, because of that, he started robbing banks. I've really liked most of what the Russos have done. I think they are pretty solid directors, and I really like what they did with the Marvel movies that they were attached with too. I think they have some interesting stylistic choices and all of that they can tell some pretty cool stories in. This movie, however, was mixed bag for me. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. My biggest issue with this film was that it's very scattered in terms of its messaging. It's trying to tell you certain things and provide commentary on those subjects, but unfortunately, it cannot seem to stick the landing on either of them. And so the product that we're finally seeing here feels very scattershot. Performances-wise, this film is fantastic. We've got Tom Holland, who is really good in this. Maybe the best performance of his career. He's fantastic all through the film. Chiara Bravo is similarly phenomenal in this movie. They're both great. The problem is the script surrounding them and giving them stuff to work with. There were moments where some of the storytelling felt like it was very conventional in that regard, and it felt somewhat like it was just about scraping the surface when it came to certain subjects having the impact that it should, as compared to it going for that sort of devastating blow that I think the story really wanted to go for. There's also some points in this movie where narration comes in, and he breaks the fourth wall to talk to you also while there is narration going on, but there are other scenes where it doesn't happen. It felt very out of place. Like, I understand if you want to do narration as a device, that's fine. It happens in a lot of films. The problem is here it adds nothing to the overall storytelling. It just makes it a little more stilted because it's used in some sequences in a certain way and other sequences in another way, and there's really no proper usage of it. It just feels very strange. There's also points where, and I noticed this a little more as the film went on, where they're trying to do way too much commentary on the way banks are handling veterans and the way the places are being robbed. The names of the banks are interesting. For example, there was the bank in the beginning, of course, but later on in the film, as Cherry is robbing these banks, it'll be something called Fuck Bank America or something like that, and something like Shitty Bank, which was okay. That's bit on the nose over there. Some of it could have been a lot more subtle, I'll give it that. I think there is a very riveting story to be told here, but the problem is in the stylistic choices that the direction makes in terms of its color schemes, in terms of its camera angles at times, the editing choices. Some of that didn't quite match the story that was on display. Let's talk about those camera angles though, shall we? This film has some very good cinematography, but there also has some very bizarre cinematography as well. And when I was saying stylistic choices, there's a scene pretty early on where you see someone flashing a light down a tunnel. And I was thinking, okay, I wonder what this is, because we've just cut from this army training sequence because he's just gone to Iraq and now suddenly flashlight down the tunnel. And then it cuts to the next shot and you find out that it was this doctor basically looking, and you were also looking through a POV of Tom Holland's ass. So, that's a thing in this movie. Now, I'm not exaggerating. So, yep. And unfortunately, this becomes a case of style over substance pretty quickly. I admire the directional choices that are taken in this. I think there are some very experimental decisions made, and I like when directors can do that. I think there is a lot of ambition in this movie, a lot to be found, and a lot of definite commendations to be given based on that regard. The problem with this movie is that at the end of the day, it is also trying to tell a story over years of this one man. A very devastating story at that, while also trying to make commentaries on the opioid crisis, the way veterans are treated in society, and both of those things don't quite seem to mesh together in the way that I think the Russos wanted it to, which is unfortunate because unfortunately that is the crux of the film. That is what the film is trying to do. It just doesn't quite stick the landing when it comes to either of those two topics, and that really bogs the movie down for me. That being said, I think there is going to be a polarized reaction to this movie. I think a lot of people are going to like it, and I think some people will really appreciate the storytelling on display. That being said, there are still things to appreciate in it. The score by Henry Jackman's pretty good, and while I said there were bizarre cinematography choices here and there, it is still fairly good cinematography like for the most part. You do have a very good looking movie here, and if it wasn't for Tom Holland's central performance, because he's so freaking good in this movie would honestly fail. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. There is a lot to praise in it, like I said, and the ambition is very, very clear. It's just I really needed more focus. If it just had that, it would have been a lot better, and it would have been a rather good, solid, great movie even if it was just a little better handled. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.